Well, first, again, welcome everyone for joining us to the NAPSA Certificate Program Orientation session. I am Jennifer. I am the new Program Assistant for Adult Protective Services Workforce Innovations, also known as APSWI or APSWI if you like acronyms. And joining us here today is Emily Sulpizio, which is the APSWI Training Program Coordinator. And we will go ahead and get started in our presentation. Thank you, Emily. And so just a little bit about the Academy and APSWI. The Academy is a project of the San Diego State School of Social Work, and we have been proudly serving over 20,000 health and human services professionals annually, such as yourselves. And the Academy's mission is to provide exceptional workforce development and learning experiences for the transformation of individuals and organizations and communities. And just a little bit about ourselves, Adult Protective Service Workforce Innovations. We are a training program of the Academy for Professional Excellence. And we provide innovative workforce development to adult protective services professionals such as yourselves and your partners. And now you're all probably wondering, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the National Adult Protective Services Association, but this is a little bit about the organization. So the National Adult Protective Services Association, also known as NAPSA, is a national nonprofit organization with members in all 50 states. And it was formed in 1989. And NAPSA is a leader in the development and dissemination of training for APS professionals and adult protective services programs nationwide. And their main goal is that APS programs have a space to connect, share solutions, and have an improved quality of service for elders and vulnerable adults who have been mistreated.
Sorry.
Okay. And I apologize, my Wi-Fi is not acting up. There might be a bit of a delay on my end. So thank you for your patience. Now, a little bit of the NAPSA Certificate Program. It is a series of quality training materials that also includes a curriculum developed by NAPSA Education Certificate Committees and APSWI. And the core APS curriculum offers 23 core competencies, which I'm sure you're all familiar with now. It was part of the attachments in your welcome email that you should have all received from me. So yeah, the 23 core competencies are identified by NAPSA as basic important practices for APS professionals. And the trainings offer valuable insight into all areas of APS practices and valuable learning experiences. And the main goal of the certificate program is to develop well-trained professionals who will improve the safety and ensure the independence of older and vulnerable adults. Now, the requirements of candidacy. Individuals interested in earning their NAPSA certificate must be employed in a program that provides protective services to older and or vulnerable adults, and persons with disabilities who are victims of abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and or exploitation. And now they must be employed for a minimum of 2 years. Now, candidates must also demonstrate an understanding of the job they are expected to perform as APS professionals by achieving equivalency through formal training or by passing the equivalency exam. Now here on the screen, we will see the 23 core competencies that I was talking about on the previous slide. It is one of your attachments in the welcome email, and this will be your guide for sure. And this gives you an overview of everything that you need to complete And I'll get a few more slides in, I'll go ahead and get more into that as to when it's all due and everything. So NAPSA, a little bit more about the core competencies. NAPSA and APS Workforce Innovation, so ourselves, have developed a core curriculum to accompany each of the NAPSA core competencies required for NAPSA certificate completion. The following table contains a list of each of the APSWI training courses and the corresponding NAPSA core competencies they align with. And I apologize once again, there's a major delay on my end. My Wi-Fi is a little slow today. So thank you for your patience. Okay, so credits for for previous NAPSA modules, just so you all know, training's taken up to 2 years prior to the application date, which is July 1st, 2019, can receive credit with required documentation. Now, applicants must provide the following documentations, which is a training completion certificate or a transcript showing that they have completed the training and when it was completed. And up on the screen, we see the simple steps for the how to enroll, register for the NAPSA certificate program. So step 1 is to register through your county training coordinator. Step 2 is complete the NAPSA certificate application and employment verification form. 3 is complete training and obtain transcripts. And number 4 is submit training completion documentation to APSWI. Now, the great news is that you've all completed step 1, which was to register through your county training coordinator. So yay, you can all give yourself a round of applause. Now, number 2 is, and I know many of you have done the following as well, which is fill out the NAPSA application and date it July 1st, 2019, since it's the 2-year look back date we talked about in the previous slide. And number 3 was, complete your employment verification form with your supervisor's signature. And you've all sent it to yours truly at the email seen on the screen, along with a copy of any training transcripts and/or certificates of completion, just mainly to keep track and see where you're at and keep you in the loop. And as mentioned, I just want you all to know that, many of you have done this already, and I'd like to thank you for your patience. Just know that I see you, and I'm slowly working my way up, and I will respond back to your emails as soon as I can. So thank you all for your patience. And how to register for the APSWI e-learning. So one of the few steps is to send an email to the one on the screen, which is the Academy LMS@sdsu.edu. And it would be super helpful if you could please include your name, your email address, the county that you're working, the department that you're working at, which is in this case APS, your primary job assignment, like whether you're a line worker, a supervisor, or a manager, and your supervisor's name and email address. Now, if you need to complete more than one e-learning to receive the NAPSA certificate, please provide a list of 3 to 4 courses at a time in the email. Mainly is just easier because we wouldn't want you, I'm sure you all have a lot on your plate as APS professionals. So we highly advise you that you sign up at least 3 to 4 courses because we don't want to overwhelm you as well. Now, these are the super, super important dates to know. I highly encourage you to make note of that in your personal calendars. I mean, we know that life happens, but the application due date, so the NAPSA application dated July 1st, employment verification, your transcript, all that good stuff, is all due on November 1st, 2021. So that's the due date for the NAPSA, all NAPSA applications. And all of your 23 core competencies that we talked about earlier, they all must be completed by April 1st, 2022. I know that's April Fool's Day, but it's not a joke. So yeah, April 1st, 2022, so November 1st, 2021, which is coming up in a few weeks, and April 1st. Those are your two main target dates. Now, I thank you all for hanging tight and taking all this information in. And I know it was a lot to take in. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box or unmute your microphone, whatever works best for you. There's some things that didn't make sense, you feel, or there are other things that you'd like for us to elaborate a little more, anything. And like I said, I understand that not everyone's comfortable being on camera and a recording, so feel free to type it in the chat box, or feel free to just unmute yourself with your camera off.
I do have a question.
Sure.
This is Valerie. I'm curious on the listing of classes that were scheduled to do. Some of them state in-person learning training. Are we still doing those in-person trainings, or are those null and void and it's just the e-learning that we do online?
I believe great question, Valerie. Thank you for asking. So the in-person trainings, that's right now due to COVID-19, we're only offering it virtual. So it would be through Zoom. And of course, once you enroll into, the class successfully via LMS, you sign up successfully, you will be receiving, all participants in that course will be receiving, I believe, two confirmation emails, one from LMS, I believe, and one from Google, I believe, which will contain your unique Zoom link for that training. So bottom line, in-person trainings for the rest of this year are strictly virtual through Zoom.
And are those scheduled out, or when we request, I know we're requesting 3 or 4 of the e-learnings to be, added to our profile at one time, and the Zoom ones, will those be scheduled and just given to us so we know when to get on them, or are there different time frames for those, or how do we know when those will be?
Jennifer, I can jump in.
Sure, go ahead, Emily.
Answer Valley's question. So so the options are for completing the core competencies, or you can take it via an e-learning, or if there is an instructor-led option and it's being offered virtually, you could then take it virtually. However, most convenient right now is taking the e-learning. So if anyone needs courses, you don't have to wait. You can go ahead and start taking those e-learnings right away if there's any that you haven't taken yet. With that being said, there are a few NAPSA core competencies that APSWI, our program, will be offering this year. So one of the core competencies is mental health and APS. It's module number 6. That will be offered as an instructor-led version. It's a blended training that's going to be offered in December, on December 7th and 9th. So you could choose one of those options if you want to do an instructor-led option. If not, you could just take the e-learning for that mental health and APS module. There's one other that's going to be offered later this year, likely in January or February, and that's screening for decision-making ability, which is also a core training. So we'll be sending out info to all of our county coordinators if any instructor-led core training or other trainings will be offered. But otherwise, all of the modules, the 23 core competencies, can be taken via e-learning, and those can be taken at any time. It's online through our LMS. So you don't have to wait or look for an ILT for that, because you can just take it as an e-learning whenever you're able. Does that help?
Yes, because it said, like for the mental health one, it says ILT 4 hours, and then it says the e-learning for 2 hours. So I thought you had to do both.
Yes. So that is just sharing that that module and that competency can be taken as an e-learning or an
Thank you.
ILT. It's a little confusing though, because NAPSA has determined that some of the ILTs are actually a blended learning format.
Okay.
So if you were to take it as an ILT, it's blended. So they will ask you to still also take the e-learning. That's a prereq for the ILT. It seems a little bit redundant because you could just take the e-learning and get credit for that. But some folks like to do that extra skill building in person. So I want to clarify, all courses can be taken as an e-learning, but some courses also have an ILT option attached to it. It just depends on if that's being offered. I hope that helps. All right, and Jennifer, it looks like there's a couple other questions that are coming in the chat.
Absolutely, and thank you for answering that, Emily. I appreciate it. One of the questions in the chat is that someone forgot to include their previously completed trainings. Is it okay to send them over at this time? Absolutely. You are always more than welcome to send it to my email address, which is the jovalle@stsu.edu, and I'll type that in the chat box actually. But yes, you can. It's never too late to send your entire transcript if you forgot to do so, for sure. And now another question popped up. One moment, please. Let me just quickly type in my email address in the chat box. Okay, and how do we exactly start the modules? Did you say we have to email the module name in order to begin it? No, actually, you can begin your modules now. You don't need to wait for any confirmation from me or anything. So you can get started right away if you'd like in your LMS. I hope that answers your question.
Can I elaborate a bit, Jennifer?
Yes, please.
So if you would like to take them as an e-learning, you do need to be registered for the e-learning. So I just pulled up this slide that had the information. So you'll email the Academy LMS with the information listed. So your name, email address, county, department, job assignment, and your supervisor's name and email address. And if you need more than 3 to 4 courses, start with 3 or 4 at a time. And yes, you will need to email the names of those courses to that email, academylms@stsu, so they know which courses to register you into. And that's how you can get started completing the e-learning modules for each core competency.
Thank you very much, Emily. I hope that answered your question. Now there is another question, and it reads, do each of the core competency courses have a testing out option, or is it select courses? If select courses, which courses have the option? That's a fantastic question, Latanya. Emily, would you like to answer this question for us?
Sure. Yeah, so every course does have a test out option. Unfortunately, folks cannot test out of all 23 core competencies. There's a maximum of 3, it's either 3 or 4 courses that you can test out of. And so essentially what that means is if you have a certain amount of years in APS, or if you've already taken the course and it's beyond the look back date. So if you've taken it prior to the 2019 look back date, then you potentially could fall into the category of being approved to test out of a course. So if you are interested in that, feel free to reach out to Jennifer, and then we'll get additional information. And we would like to know which courses that you want to test out on. We'll just need to verify that you have enough years in APS and if you've already taken the course or not. So yes, just let us know if you are interested in the test out option, and we'll give you more info.
Thank you very much, Emily. Okay, we don't seem to have any more questions in the chat box.
Hi, I have a question. This is Mary Linda. My question on the NAPSA orientation email that we received, it said that the due date to provide the NAPSA certificate application and the employment verification is October 11th, but then on the slide you said November 1st. So is there another application, or which date is it?
So the final date is November 1st for sure. October 11, that's mainly for, yes, on October 11, meaning that's when we opened it up for anyone, because there were quite, there are some people who like to turn in their application as soon as possible and everything is set up. So I guess in a better term, we were accepting applications starting on that date, but the final date is November 1st, if that makes any sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I just read it like it was the date that it was due. The way I read it, just because it's like in red, like I felt like it was due October 11th. So that's why I was a
Oh, okay.
little confused when I saw November 1st. So I just didn't know if it was the same application or if it was another application that I didn't know about. But if it's the same, then I already submitted it, so I guess I'm okay.
Yes, it is the
Absolutely.
same. The October 11th is when we really wanted the applications in. That was ideally um, the best time to get them in, but we did extend it. So if anyone needs to, November 1 is really the last date that we would really like those applications in, because it's helpful for us to know early on how many courses you all have completed and how many you still need left. And that way we can be more mindful of how many courses you need to complete between now and the April 1st date, which is when the courses are done. So November 1 is really the last date that is needed to turn in the application, but please turn it in earlier. Sounds like you already did. That's why we put the October 11th date, because that's when we would like them in. But November 1 is the last date to turn it in, so we can verify your courses and make sure you have all the info that you need to get started. Thank you for that question and appreciate you clarifying that for us. Got it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Emily. And thank you all for all those of you who have turned in your applications and everything. And as I mentioned before, just, if you send in your application and I haven't gotten back to you, I do apologize. I am working my way up and you will be hearing from me sooner. So thank you all for your patience and support. Do we have any more questions, comments? And like I said, you're more than welcome to write it in the chat box or just unmute yourself. Okay, and if there are no more questions, you're all more than welcome to end this Zoom call. And I do want to thank you all on behalf of myself and Emily and the entire APSWI team. We'd like to thank you very much for coming. Oh, and we have a question. Sure. What is your question, Gabriella? And I'd love to answer it.
So if we are already registered through LMS, do we still need to send an email to be enrolled in each of the courses that we're still missing, or will those courses be on there already?
So if you already have an LMS account, you will still need to ensure that you are enrolled in the courses. So I'm not sure if you're saying if you already have an LMS account. If that's the case, you'll just log in, want to verify if you are already registered for the e-learnings or not. If you are not, then that's where you'll need to email the LMS just to make sure that you get registered for the courses that you do need. But it is a great step to first ensure that you have an LMS account. If anyone doesn't have an LMS account or you're not sure if you have an LMS account, you can email Jennifer and Jennifer will check that out and verify for you. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat box. And let's see. Oh, what is the turnaround time for the courses to be added? Emily, do we have a turnaround time?
Yeah, so once the LMS help desk receives your email, would like to give them about 2 to 3 days for them to then process your request to register you into the courses. So it shouldn't take long. They'll verify that they've received your email, and then you will then receive email confirmations confirming that you've been registered for the courses. So that is my understanding of what your question is. What is the turnaround time for the courses to be added? To me, that sounds like what's the turnaround time to be registered into the course once you've been requested to, or once you've requested to be registered. So about 2 to 3 days for the LMS help desk to receive your request and get you enrolled. Excellent. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Okay, great. Anyone has any more questions they'd like to ask in the chat box or unmuting? Okay, it seems that those are all of our questions for today. Well, thank you all very much. If